Hello everyone, friends. Lifesteal is here, Alexander Evsev as always. And who is with me today? Friends, if you don't hit like and please write something really nice, I don't know. We'll find you and do something to you. Pavel Popov, endocrinologist friends, is with us again. He hasn't been here for a long time, and finally he's back once again right here on the Lifesteal channel. One of our most beloved guests, speakers of this channel. Pasha, hi.
Greetings. I hope part of what you said is true. And let me point out, it's better not to threaten people. I've done that and it never leads to anything good.
In short, let's not threaten, but show love, one love to our viewers. I invited Pasha to discuss a topic that's quite popular right now. Pasha, now we're all going to quickly, together, and in unison defeat obesity and excess weight. Because on the market, on the black market, on the white market, there are drugs like various GLP-1 receptor agonists. And supposedly, they're going to help everyone lose weight quickly, so everyone will be slim and beautiful. Is that really the case? Are we going to overcome obesity in the near future? Easily and simply. Because these drugs are gaining popularity, there are quite a lot of them now. You can even buy them at the pharmacy, or not at the pharmacy. Is it really going to be all smooth sailing and rainbows?
Who the hell knows what the future will be like? But in reality, they've only become popular now. This group of drugs has actually been around for quite a while. For example, you take Ozempic or our Russian Semavic or Quincenta, and they all contain semaglutide. Semaglutide is indeed a glucagon-like peptide agonist, a single molecule. So what's the issue there? The problem is that it's the most unpleasant to use. Of course, it's all individual, but what's the catch? Many people inject the drug and really do not want to eat. That is true, but sometimes they absolutely do not want to eat anything at all, in principle. And then there are all these scandals, the statements like, I have nausea, I have vomiting, or even Ozempic face. But naturally, if you don't eat anything at all, you lose weight fast, like you can lose 10 kilograms in a month. Of course, your skin will definitely show it, and your bones won't get enough essential protein, important calcium, or even the necessary vitamin D. Obviously, you'll have problems. So the issue isn't really with the drug itself, but with how it's used. And plus, semaglutide, and by the way, it's far from the only representative of its group, specifically GLP-1 agonist, has side effects. Heartburn. It was the first time I learned what heartburn was while taking it. Before that, I had never really experienced it. I mean, I had never felt it myself, and nausea. And for example, when I was injecting it myself, I was walking around feeling nauseous and I had heartburn. At that time, I was also injecting myself with a peptide. 5-amino-1 MK, which was raising my temperature. So there I was walking around with a temperature of 37.4, nausea and fucking heartburn.
I shat myself, vomited, and had chills due to the fever all at once. And thought, great, weight loss, fuck.
The stack really, hit hard. So I kind of stopped for a while, put it on hold. But for some patients, it works fine, they feel good. And they kind of like to increase the dosage, and most importantly, here's what they refer to. The clinical studies conducted on this drug were done at a dose of 2.4 milligrams. The starting dose is usually something like 2.5, which doesn't really work, then 5, which is kind of effective, then 7.5. Basically, 2.4 is what the clinical trials used, so they gave that dose on which it just completely kills your appetite, damn it. And some people, like in the clinical trials, they actually can't read. So they gradually increased their dose to that level, and again, that's where the side effects came from. Because honestly, if you've already started down this path, you should try to stay on microdosing for as long as possible. The 5s, there it's 2.5. Actually, it's 0.25 and 0.5.
Yeah, because you said so. 2.4.
No, 2.4, that's right, I said it correctly. There it's just 0.25 to start, then 0.5, and then you eventually reach 2.4. And there are people who get used to the medication, and even at 2.4, they do not feel it anymore. There is a drug that can enhance it. The effects of this group. It's cagrilintide. If you mix cagrilintide or inject it from a separate vial, cagrilintide, which, as far as I know, is not yet registered on the official market, with semaglutide or, as we'll discuss later, tirzepatide, the appetite-suppressing effect will be enhanced. But if you've already gotten to the point where you're so desperate that even 2.4 doesn't really do anything for you, then, well, it kind of seems like that's a road to nowhere, right?
But there's actually another drug that doubles the effect even further.
Yes, by the way, there's actually another one in the same vein, probably worth mentioning. There's mesaglutide. And mesaglutide, well, some people personally think and actually note that it works better for them, even though it was basically made for the Asian market. Like for them, semaglutide doesn't work the same way as it does for us. So mesaglutide was made for Asia, but some people from our region say that it works for them. Even more actively, maybe it's a placebo effect. And actually, this drug has been on the market for a long time already. The only really negative thing about it, but again, this isn't in Russia. A study was conducted and it seems to be well designed and it looks like everything there is true. It was about vision deterioration and loss while taking semaglutide. There were no such indications for the medication tirzepatide, but with semaglutide specifically, there was a study related to vision. And now, because of this vision issue with semaglutide, if someone wants to save money, for example, and not start with tirzepatide right away, I say just go with tirzepatide. Well, you know what? Screw you then. Just in
Case, right?
Yeah. And it was stated that in studies on animals, semaglutide showed thyroid cancer. This hasn't been observed in humans, but according to the instructions that come with the medication, if a person has a history of thyroid cancer, it is generally considered better not to use semaglutide. That's the story as it stands. Accordingly, there are, in my experience, people who choose to inject even less than the recommended amount. When we buy semaglutide at the pharmacy, the dosage is set on the pen injector in specific portions. But when we buy, say, an underground drug, like one that's been mixed in a vial, you can inject as much as you want. That's how it is. Then a lot of people practice microdosing. They inject themselves. There, it's even less than 0.25, and it works for them. They end up eating just a little bit less overall. Basically, they already know how to eat properly, but this just helps them avoid slipping up, like eating an extra pastry for no real reason at all. That's it. And they feel good, they dry out pretty well, and they don't have any side effects. And for them, in my opinion, injecting a drug like this for their whole life, why not? It's a perfectly valid option. So if it works for someone, it works. And I already have experience. Some of my patients have been on it for approximately 8 years or so.
And it still works for them without increasing the dosage, right?
Yes. So for those who are initially focused on their emotional state, meaning the person wants to lose weight and wants to stick to a diet, not just give up. So if someone comes in and if someone just wants a pill or an injection so they don't feel like eating and there's no emotional involvement in reshaping their body, it's just, well, I'm not their mother. I can prescribe it, but I immediately tell them, like, this won't be the most effective method. That's obvious. But I think, by the way, that right now, many of those watching us, considering how widespread all this has become, I think almost everyone can describe some personal experience with using this drug.
How does it work? Here it is, a GLP-1 receptor agonist. What happens? Is it some kind of psychological effect? Do you just not want to eat? These are the hunger and satiety receptors. They get blocked and you take a couple of breaths, a couple of bites, and you already feel full.
These receptors are located in the brain. They help to regulate our entire gastrointestinal tract, the secretion of digestive juices, peristalsis, and basically, through the brain, the intestines start to work more slowly. That's how it works. So your food stays in your stomach longer, your stomach empties later, less digestive juices are secreted, meaning you slow down your digestion process. Then, well, that's also kind of... Well, if you, for example, at first I was afraid of semaglutide, and I never tried it, but with tirzepatide, semaglutide is really popular right now. I even had a post about this topic. So how did we used to cut weight for competitions? Well, not we. I didn't compete. Back then it was clenbuterol, yohimbine, ephedrine, for those who had access to it. And, of course, hormones for the glands. And basically, that was it. Now there are so many options. It's honestly incredible. Slufa P332, BAM15, Phytorin, Cardarine. And then there's this whole story with glucagon-like peptide agonists. That's the next generation. How are they different? For example, there's tirzepatide, Munjaro, and semaglutide. Tirzepatide is not only a glucagon-like peptide agonist, it's also an antagonist of glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide. There's another molecule in the same family, also related to gastrointestinal function, actually. And there are even more modern drugs available today, such as retartrutide and tirzepatide, which also specifically target glucagon receptors. But for an average person off the street, honestly, they really do not care which specific receptors are being targeted. With each new drug that comes out, it's not even about being more powerful. It just becomes more comfortable and easier to use overall. So with one drug, you might get heartburn, nausea, bloating, maybe diarrhea or constipation, while with another drug, you just feel a bit less hungry. And that's it. And that's why each new generation aims to do just that, to make people's lives more comfortable. With imglutide, for example, I was kind of scared at first. If you prescribe it before a competition, and some people already have issues like not getting along with vegetables and so on, or those who are doing carb loading for the first time, their digestion can already get blocked up and they can get constipated. Then if you add a little more to that, so to speak, you could end up ruining the competition for them because of constipation. Exactly. So I didn't really focus on that. But now I already have quite a lot of experience. People are even microdosing themselves with Mundjaro and the like. Before, during prep, you'd be shaking, your heart rate would be up. So things like clenbuterol and yohimbine would rev you up and you'd be all jittery, but now you can eat comfortably. You don't even want to eat. Basically, all metabolic drugs and supplements are working. Well, maybe just a slight increase in temperature at most, but nothing serious. No jitters, no racing pulse, no shaking. That's it. And now competing has become much more comfortable, meaning you're not torturing yourself as much anymore. Although, obviously, for the level of subcutaneous fat thickness that is actually required in some of these specific categories, you're still going to feel like crap. But still, it's noticeably less than before.
These drugs have gradually made their way into competitive bodybuilding and are now used quite actively by many individuals. It's just that I've mostly heard about this, for regular people, like especially for guys who have a significant amount of body mass. But competitive athletes either keep quiet about it or simply don't talk openly. It's not like athletes go around saying, before competitions, I injected tirzepatide, or I'm on tirzepatide, look at my physique. For some reason, in the bodybuilding community, the use of these drugs just doesn't get very much attention at all for some reason. Is it that they're keeping quiet about it, or are they embarrassed to admit they use them now? Their so-called cheat codes, so to speak?
Recently, someone told me in an interview, actually during that interview they mentioned Dunn, they said that in America there's an athlete who stated that Nick Walker admitted he uses GLP-1 agonists. He supposedly likes them, says everything is great.
Maybe he's been using them for several years and only just talked about it yesterday. Still not much. In the bodybuilding community, I guess it's common, I'm not sure why, but for some reason people are still embarrassed to talk about it, in my opinion. For some reason, I rarely see a competing athlete admit that they use drugs of this kind. Everyone's still like, I'm hardcore, I'm on clenbuterol, I'm shaking, I popped some caffeine, now I'm shaking even more, ephedrine, smeared it on, and that's it. Yeah.
By the way, I saw recently that clenbuterol actually doesn't do shit for weight loss.
And who said that?
Evidence-based medicine.
But what about all of us who used to take up to 140 micrograms of it? Yeah.
The fat was burning because he was on a diet.
Wait, it really doesn't work? Damn, you ruined me. I took so much clenbuterol, honestly, really hoping it would work.
So it might have actually added a small amount of muscle, but it really didn't burn fat, however.
Turn off the camera. Damn it, I need to process this information. How does clenbuterol not work? Well, your temperature does go up. For me, it's...
Yeah, it's all bullshit. The receptors in the muscles get used to it really fast, and that's exactly why there's no point. That's why I was taking it 2 days on, 2 days off, or 3 on, 3 off. I wasn't taking it all the time, to take breaks. Ketotifen, a little bit. The reaction with ketotifen hasn't been explained by anyone at all. Where did ketotifen even come from? Some of those phenos, so you could fall asleep after all that crap?
I fell asleep. When they told me about ketotifen, I had no idea. So in the morning, I'd pop a clenbuterol pill and a ketotifen pill. And I'm just thinking, damn, why am I getting hit so hard? I just think this is the well-coordinated path of a bodybuilder. I'm on a diet, I can't even get up or open my eyes. I feel like shit. Turns out I wasn't supposed to take it in the morning, that drug.
Yeah, I really shouldn't have taken it at all. And now there's this big reevaluation going on about what people were doing, and I was prescribing all that crap too. I mean, I can't say that I just came in and like clenbuterol is trash or something. No, I used to think it worked too, but you have to know when to,
Change your mind.
yeah, change your mind in time or you'll just get stuck there. Now, about peptides, if we're still talking about appetite blockers, most people are injecting tirzepatide, of course. It can also be combined with cagrilintide to enhance the effects. Its starting dose is actually 2.5 milligrams, not 0.25 milligrams. You can gradually ramp up the dose to a maximum of 15 milligrams per week. This is taken once a week. There are fewer side effects. In stores, the Russian version is sold under the name Tirzeta. It's prescription only. Well, prescription only. If you ask, you get a prescription. Basically, when people say my doctor won't prescribe it to me, a prescription, I think to myself, yeah, just go to the damn pharmacy and ask nicely. And
One place didn't give it, another did. Yeah. Wait, what about the prescription? For example, to get a prescription for testosterone, you need to confirm with tests that your level is below 12 nanomoles per liter. You have to go to an andrologist, and then you might get it. And what's the official indication for writing a prescription? Could you elaborate a bit more on that, please?
body mass index, over 30.
Over 30, and theoretically, so mine is probably actually over 30, considering my body mass ratio.
Well, everyone already understands that body mass index is an outdated metric.
But there is an indicator that allows a doctor to officially prescribe it, and this medication is included in the official drug registry. Now, yes, already? Yes.
Yes, that is, the Russian versions have been included. So, for example, if you want to inject the original Ozempic, your friends or dealers might bring or obtain it for you from Europe or America, for instance. It's the same situation with Munjaro, and if you're ready to inject either the pharmacy version or an underground one from some company, then you can use them without any problem at all. In my opinion, they both work the same way. I don't see much of a difference.
Even in terms of price, I've seen that sometimes you can even get Semaglutide cheaper at the pharmacy than on the black market. That's our Russian equivalent.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than what's sold on the black market. But people say theirs is quality and the stuff from the pharmacy is crap.
By the way, the pharmacy stuff is fine too. So it really depends on who reacts how. I usually use growth hormone as an example. Remember Nordex?
Yeah.
Here it was crap, and God knows what they made it from. But it worked, didn't it? Well, overall, there were people who broke out in red spots, had allergic reactions. There were people who injected it. IGF grew, HGH grew, everything grew. So for some people, the immune system doesn't react as strongly to certain things, and maybe they can't tolerate some medications completely. Purified, not quite somewhere there, something to perceive as a completely adequate therapy. That's why every patient is different. Here everything depends on your finances and your health. Tirzepatide, good stuff. It actually has fewer side effects than semaglutide. The dose can be increased to 15 milligrams. It's probably not worth doing this. You can also mix it with cagrilintide. Again, you can stay on it as long as you want, your whole life if you want, so basically no problem. Ideally, as it's described, if you go to a clinic, you should first increase it to the maximum dose, lose weight, develop healthy eating habits during this time, then stop taking it and stay as you are.
After quitting, there's this withdrawal syndrome. Have you ever experienced it where you stop and then boom, it all goes wild, like bring everything you've got?
Yeah, that's how it is for everyone.
All the time, yeah, everything comes back.
Yeah, so that was the thing is,
Everyone gained it all back.
yeah, but it's the same with the test. Cancel, fuck all the tests, the anabolics, whatever it may be, philanthropists. So what is left then? That's why a lot of medications, like for blood pressure, people end up taking for their whole lives. Yeah, so like if you want to but can't control some function of your body, like your appetite, for example, well, you have some support. If you want, take it. If you don't, then don't. For some people, it's truly a lifesaver because we understand that when a person is overweight, it's not just, they're overweight. They have metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, diabetes complications, and cardiovascular risks. There are risks of strokes. Many people inject this, and there's a huge amount of data showing how the risks of myocardial infarction and similar issues decrease. So it's not just a medication to help you lose a little bit of fat by suppressing your appetite. No, this is a medication that actually saves lives.
Right? It does?
Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. So even if you used to weigh 160 kilograms, you take all this stuff, and now you weigh 130 kilograms. Well, you're not Alain Delon, sure, but you're at lower risk now. Plus, you quit smoking, your blood pressure dropped after losing 30 kilograms, and you don't need as many pills now. That's awesome, right? So just keep taking the shots for life. No one questions it. If someone has diabetes, they're told to keep taking the shots. But if someone is overweight, it's like, stop. No. How does that make sense? So with diabetes, you can take injections your whole life, but otherwise you can't. That's not right either. And actually, the third generation, retartrutide, which was followed by survodutide with the same targets of action, besides everything else, it also affects the glucagon receptor. I don't really know exactly how much it affects a person's appetite, but it does in fact offer even better and more consistent blood sugar control overall. And that's precisely why, when you look at the bigger picture, the criticism of this particular group of drugs mostly comes from the fact that someone used it on their own and did it incorrectly. Someone overestimated the effect in advance. Someone bought it somewhere they shouldn't have and got something bad. Someone had unrealistic expectations, like with statins. You're getting me hooked on statins. Someone thought they'd take an injection, lose weight, and stay that way forever. So in reality, as is so often the case, it's really the work of marketing. People develop and manufacture the drug, and then marketers come in to create and promote inflated expectations. And then people don't. They don't get them.
Because I saw somewhere, maybe, I don't know, about half a year ago, maybe more, even on Central Television, somewhere on the internet, there was a whole campaign. They were inviting victims, and this topic was being hyped up in the media space that this is all terrible, not good at all. What was the purpose of that? If, in principle, it was doctors expressing their opinions, specialists, some for, some against, but for some reason there was this kind of direction like, let's all... Oh no, this is bad. Why was it like that? What do you think? Because they hadn't released the Russian equivalent yet.
First of all,
once it was released, everything basically became fine. And
secondly, no. Doctors are often invited. For example, you're just sitting there and they invite you somewhere to comment on something. And when that happened to me, I would say, go to hell. Because if suddenly you were just sitting in your office, right, you actually weren't there. The Minister of Health, right? You were just sitting in your office and they invite you, we'd like to hear your opinion. That means they want to twist your opinion somehow. They want to use it.
And then when you see it on TV in context, it turns out it wasn't about that at all. And then Pashavov is like, I'm for it, damn it. But nobody knows what the conversation was really about.
They just somehow make money off of it. So some people make money by producing and selling, while others make money by supposedly opposing it. And everyone is making money. It's just like with world events. That's how it happens. And in medicine, it's the same conflicts and wars. That's why I evaluate each patient individually, whether it's necessary or not. In reality, if a patient comes in and they've already arrived and say, I want this thing, although on Medscape, a well-known portal for medical professionals, there are often articles on the topic. There are actually articles, can you imagine, articles about what to do when a patient is begging you for a prescription for impact.
What should you do when they're begging? So what should you do?
Well, like how to explain to them about a healthy lifestyle. Some kind of bullshit, not a single useful piece of advice.
So you have to talk them out of it?
Yeah, so when a patient comes in, their BMI isn't even over 30. It's just that they've got a little bit of fat and they want to get rid of it, basically. That's it. And how do you talk them out of using this drug so that there aren't any... By the way, I didn't mention pancreatitis when talking about side effects. Do you know why I didn't mention pancreatitis? Because, knock on wood, I haven't encountered it in my practice. My patients sometimes use all sorts of things, but for pancreatitis to happen, I think you'd really have to go on a drinking binge. Like, really go on a bender, I'd say. Go on a real spree. And
what other peptide-based drugs are there besides GLP-1 agonists? There are also some other classes of substances that help with weight loss, right?
yes, there are a lot of peptides now, but I guess it's worth starting with the ones our viewers are familiar with. These are growth hormone secretagogues. However, I would not generally recommend or endorse them. In this context, they're kind of marketed as well for weight loss. But they actually stimulate ghrelin receptors, which makes you want to eat. So basically, growth hormone is a lipolytic. Your levels go up, but you end up overeating. And in the end, you just turn into a water barrel. In my opinion, that's not a great idea. AOD. A fragment of growth hormone, even more fat burning.
Who? AOD?
AOD. AOD.
I haven't heard of that.
Basically a fragment of growth hormone. He could just start throwing random words and abbreviations at me now, and I just feel dumber and dumber. It's just somehow about peptides. Not related at all, really, just something. Well, maybe
And what is this?
a fragment of growth hormone. You inject it, and supposedly, if growth hormone increases cancer risks, this one doesn't, and it burns fat. According to reviews from peptide enthusiasts, it's a great drug. No cancer risks, and you lose weight. And if you ask ChatGPT about AOD, it says that all the studies conducted on it have failed. No one lost any damn weight. That's why I stopped prescribing it. From the popular ones, there's MOTS-G. MOTS-C is a drug that acts on mitochondria, protects them, and partly stimulates them. It's about energy metabolism and increasing energy expenditure. Moreover, it has anti-catabolic effects. It also preserves muscle mass. So, overall, it's a truly wonderful and remarkable drug, and it even seems to increase lifespan.
It burns energy, increases resting state, like raises the basal metabolic rate.
Yeah, kind of. And it also seems to slightly affect appetite as well. What's interesting about it is that you can inject it for your whole life. There's no addiction. About 5 milligrams, typically 3 times a week. It's not particularly inexpensive. There's a pen injector, I think, for 30 milligrams. It costs approximately $10,000 to $15,000, give or take.
Fraction.
Well, I mean,
Before lunch and
for 2 weeks, for
weeks.
so 30 together, up to 1 was gone. I tried injecting it. Personally, it just didn't work for me, even though I was injecting 4 milligrams every day. When I was given it as a gift, it was nonsense, so... No, but someone told me it works better. So I complained. I said, it doesn't work. They told me that's because you have a shitty lifestyle. Like if you went to bed on time.
Well, if I had a normal lifestyle, I would lose weight. Without all this crap.
So in short, it just didn't work for me. Some patients say they feel really energized, like they get up, inject, and have a ton of energy, and then they fall asleep on that peptide. The SIP is such a peptide. It comes as a nasal spray and as injections. Yeah, and on it you sleep deeper. Like you wake up on one, fall asleep on the other. Fuck.
What the fuck is this shit? You wake up in the morning, it's just insane. These peptides, really. You inject this one to lose weight. This one, fuck, is for working out. This one, so you can fall asleep. Fuck, you're just walking around full of peptides. Like a cyborg, fuck, Rambo Stallone.
I am already like a guinea pig for all this stuff. I mean, I try out whatever's out there. Sometimes I just poke at my stomach like this.
What? There's no space left anymore.
Yeah, there's nowhere left to inject. Some people inject into their side or wherever, but I can't even turn that way. Everything cramps. There's SS31. SS31, it was even approved by the FDA on either the 15th or 19th of September. It's literally damn brand new. Yeah. It also binds directly to the mitochondria, specifically on the inner mitochondrial membrane, where it takes its place and significantly improves energy metabolism, thereby helping to prevent the loss of those very important ions. So basically, they work. It treats Barth syndrome when people have almost no physical strength. They have this kind of disease where genetically they either die in childhood or if they grow up, every single movement is damn a struggle for them.
Always sad, right? Like that?
Yeah. And not because he wants to fool everyone, but because he really does have a metabolic disorder. And it was approved, but they'll be closely monitoring how it works during the post-registration period. If it truly does deliver results, such as how it increased quadriceps muscle strength in exercise tests, then they'll say, well, it means it will be easier for people to walk and move around. And they'll be carefully monitoring post-registration data, some of it coming from medical professionals, and deciding whether to continue production or not. Well, naturally, everyone was happy, but there's a clear and important note attached. It is not recommended for use to maintain general health. Mitochondria, some kind of rejuvenation, all that stuff. Like, we registered it specifically for treating Barth syndrome. That's it, like, leave us alone. That's it. But of course, everyone was happy, and it's actually been on the underground market for a long time already. That's it. And people use it in courses of 2 to 4 milligrams a day for about 4 weeks.
Again, on the underground market. Just like with SARMs, there was a time when it was impossible to buy a proper SARM. Ardor and ligandrol, total crap, just garbage. What about peptides? Is it the same story?
Now everything is different here. Starting with the idea, it seems like it was the Americans. The first site, I thought their first site was peptide.science.com, but maybe it wasn't. Well, anyway, they came up with it, but it's mostly the Chinese who actually make all this stuff. They ordered these peptides from the Chinese. Good stuff. Everything worked. And to avoid responsibility, they were the first to come up with writing not for human use on them. So they produce official products. You can come and inspect them. They have all the documents, everything. Come by any time, no problem. So the quality of the product, you can check it, but they don't take any responsibility for what happens to you after you take it.
Where? To America, for fuck's sake, to fly over and check the product quality? In Russia, the guys are chugging it. What's the quality even like? Where do they get it from? What's going on? Or is it the same crap?
Some people actually bring it in from Germany, while some, well, we had the very first site that appeared was called Russian Peptide, and then after that there was Pure Peptide. Now they're developing very actively, and as a result they have more and more products coming out, including both injectable drugs as well as a variety of nutraceuticals. I don't want this to sound like an ad. So a person can absolutely, Russian Peptide, Pure Peptide, some obscure small companies, if you go on yandex.market, you could just gorge yourself on these peptides.
Ozone, they sell them there?
Yeah, they're all there, and there are definitely some weird ones. Like, actually, I was quite surprised, and I even took a screenshot at the time, but I didn't end up writing anything about it. On one of them, it said, "How is it now when we go to buy medicines?"
The honest sign?
Yeah, the honest sign.
Photoshop works wonders, probably, right? Probably. Well, has anyone actually checked what they're producing, if it's legit? If, damn it, they're still faking protein powder in the 21st century, just 10 grams. There's only enough protein per serving, so what can we even say about such complex chains like combining peptides? I feel like someone just... Are there any statistics on the Russian market? Does anyone actually check anything? Damn, they're still faking peptides and protein powder even in 2025.
Well, with peptides, they post so-called official protocols on their websites, like the tests they've supposedly done. Yeah, as if they actually did them, right? I get it.
So basically, who knows, right? Even now.
Honestly, yeah, I wouldn't bet my life on it. Well, in general, judging by the effect, with some of these drugs, when I take them, I really feel it. It's hard for me to just get a placebo effect. I've actually experienced the placebo effect in my life before. By the way, those were pretty good, but now it's probably just placebo for me. Nothing works for me. Some of them don't do shit, well, at least for me, but for someone else, they might actually work. If a drug works, like if testosterone works, testosterone is the real deal. Damn it, it's not like, oh, it works for me, but not for you. You inject it, damn it, and it works for everyone. Yeah, no shit, you know that. Well, it'll still work. How is that possible? You must be a certain type of person or have a condition for testosterone not to affect you. Many people inject testosterone like 250 a week and say, I don't feel anything. Maybe it's something else, like insulin or something like that. Well, there are drugs that, but this one works for me. But testosterone, I don't know. Are there really people who don't feel anything from it, guys? This crap, it works on me, it doesn't, I have no idea. And in general, all of them somehow work indirectly through these metabolic increases, you know, like body temperature or metabolic rate. The only thing is that GLP-1 agonists directly affect the fact that you do not want to eat. Are there any receptors that act directly on the adipocyte, the fat cell, or is it something that acts on the cell membrane on the inner surface, speeding up metabolism there? Mitochondria, on the contrary, everything affects them. That's kind of the central core of any cell. Is there anything that actually acts on the fat cell? On the fat? But that fragment of growth hormone, it's actually supposed to pull triglycerides out of the fat cell, like into the bloodstream. And if you work out, on the 9th day. Yeah, if you work out at that moment, especially with some kind of load, then those should be used up first, such as for energy in the body, rather than glycogen. That's how it seems to work. So no, everything is basically about the main fat burner. Well, it's not actually a peptide, but it's from the same class of drugs. I've probably mentioned it everywhere already. I like it. And with Lupep 332, you probably know that drug. He keeps going again. He's just damned, just putting together like literally random letters on purpose, honestly. So what does it do? It binds, oddly enough, to the estrogen receptor. The general idea is that it modulates activity in the muscles. Activity as if you were working out, but you're not actually working out at all. You're not working out. Activity in the muscles as if you were working out. Yeah, so biochemically, some kind of neural stimuli or something, biochemical reactions. Biochemical reactions? Yes. Is it some kind of hormone release or something like that? Yeah, in that direction. And rats that were injected with high doses for 8 weeks actually lost weight and gained muscle. Without doing anything? Absolutely nothing, not doing a thing. With LUP 3.3.2, not at all. And is there such a thing on the market? Of course there is. Both in injections and in pills. Has anyone actually tried it personally? I took it myself quite a while ago, same thing. When you go into a slight deficit, they really speed things up. I don't like it. It's a shitty example. You live, but you didn't get jacked and you didn't lose weight, damn it. You haven't seen me in Citrulline, naked, right? Fortunately. With LUP. It's a cool thing. The dose is just for humans. You need to take a lot. They gave the rats much more, but here's the catch. Why is it always on rats? Their body mass is small. They always inject them with a horse dose, and if you convert that to a human dose, you'd probably have to inject a whole bucket to get the same effect. That's the funny part. It's like that. They injected the rats with a certain amount. It's calculated per kilogram of body weight. It's just a ridiculously huge dose, seriously. That's why the doses were different there. Wait, look here. Do I look bad? Look, I even have visible abs. It's just the hairiness that hides all your definition. So there's no need for you to say nasty things to me. So drugs like LPP and Fitarin go in the same category, by the way. We even talked about Fitarin before, you and I, and there was something about it too. Yeah, there was Fitarin, there was Epiclaps and Geneti. Not Genetica, what was it? There was another one, West Farm, Epiclaps and West Farm. It existed. And there were a lot of people who tried to synthesize SARMs and similar substances like this Fitarin, SR9009, SR9011 compounds. Well, they didn't work at all. It didn't impress me. Now, it seems like in some places on the market, I'm not supposed to mention them specifically, some particularly effective forms have actually started to appear recently. And the less that suppliers try to take advantage of or screw over dealers, and the less that dealers in turn try to take advantage of or screw over their clients, the better and more smoothly it all works. So these are all effective things. You just need the correct dosage, and you need someone who genuinely cares about what they're selling. So how do you assess the market overall? Lately, has the situation improved in terms of quality of those same products? Like SARMs, peptides, or because demand has increased, people can sell all sorts of crap to others? Man, I can't really assess it because I'm kind of spinning in my own sandbox, right? I can judge based on that, on how things are there. But for the wider audience, really, you go on Wildberries and damn, there are peptides like B500, BPC 157, just hanging there in some boxes, often with a quality mark attached. Well, it's kind of ridiculous, really. So overall, it's just like it used to be. If you talk to active athletes or, representatives of something, and you see their results, you reach out and ask what they're using. They tell you exactly what and where, for example. And probably it'll work for you too. But if you're not really part of those circles and you just honestly, maybe stupidly go on fucking Wildberries and type in what you read just as it appeared to you,
Lose weight?
then most likely you'll end up with something that's not the best. But it's always been like that with anabolic steroids, with everything really. Now, obviously, where even is the anabolic steroid market these days? You can't just go and get it easily.
Nowhere.
Yeah. Some people still get it.
Yeah. For some reason, some people have it all year round.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that here too. That's it. Now, among peptides, the ones that deserve attention are the anti-aging protectors. 2 drugs. I'd single them out. The most advanced one is Foxa-Dry. It cleans the cell of old organelles by breaking down and removing them. It's basically what fans of intermittent fasting were trying to achieve, in the sense that you don't eat and your cell starts consuming unnecessary old organelles.
Autophagy, right?
Autophagy, yes. But here, it actually seems to work. And there are reports that courses about 2 months long, this Foxa, 2 milligrams a couple of times a week, supposedly gives these kinds of effects. Oh, exosomes, awesome stuff. Exosomes are like little fat bubbles. They have a fatty membrane. Cells use them to communicate with each other. And these little bubbles are obtained from umbilical cord cells, which are taken from mothers who are willing to donate, so to speak. And that's how they get these exosomes. And for me, for example, going to a cosmetologist was always, well, like, screw that, screw that. Especially if they inject something near your nose, I just can't handle it, even with anesthesia. Yeah. But now, honestly, it's like, I just go ahead and buy it, and then for about a month, I use this cream every single day. They have it with exosomes. So there are exosomes in it, meaning you just rub it right onto your face, and it doesn't go into the subcutaneous fat, then into the capillary network, and then dissolve somewhere. It goes straight into the cell right away. And there are already large, comprehensive scientific studies on damaged skin in the context of after intensive cosmetic procedures like with lasers and so on, and the speed of skin recovery if you apply it with these exosomes. And the results are just amazing. I know I'm kind of ahead of the curve applying it to undamaged skin, but I feel like I'm just, well, also trying to compensate for my lifestyle choices and habits. So, well, that's probably the main reason why my face doesn't look that old. I don't know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Immune complex. I bought one with exosomes for myself too. You spray it under your tongue. And the way it actually delivers the substances, specifically through exosomes, is really cool. The market is developing rapidly. Sometimes I go in myself, and for example, I see some new jar, and I think, oh, I'll write a post about it just so I can at least study the literature, damn it, and find out what it actually is. So it's not a post from the perspective of someone who already has a ton of experience using it. It's more like an informational post, let's say. The market is developing very actively, and new things are constantly popping up. And don't forget about the IV drips, which, the same NAD+, well, you must have heard about NAD+, right? And then they wrote that when you inject NAD+ intravenously, it doesn't actually get into the cell, into the mitochondria. It breaks down at the membrane, so basically you spend 30 grand to inject yourself, and then you just pee it all out. Yeah. But now it's believed that if you inject 2 to 5 milligrams subcutaneously a couple of times a week, it works. Why? It still ends up in the capillary bed and into the bloodstream. In the end, who the hell knows? Currently, the trend is to inject NAD+ subcutaneously, but logically it makes more sense to inject it intravenously. NMN increases NAD+ production in mitochondria. But hell, try finding a place to do it, then order it, then inject it. Well, like, for example, you sit there, you're on a cycle with test, and it's all great for years. But with all these new substances, you can't really say, just do this, follow this protocol your whole life, and you'll be fine. So you have to keep up with updates. You have to keep track of what someone has rejected, what doesn't work, what does work. I mean, these are all substances that aren't banned, so they're not particularly potent. On the one hand, that's good. You don't have to worry about getting busted for them. But on the other hand, were they delivered properly? Did they go through all 3 phases of clinical trials? Yeah, no way, maybe 1 or 2 at best. And that's why you're always taking a risk using them. But in my opinion, the main risks are, first, an allergic reaction to a component of the drug, and second, that absolutely nothing will happen, except your money will disappear.
If they don't work, it's just money down the drain. Yeah, exactly. That's actually true. It's always been a problem like that. One thing is whether the drug itself works or doesn't work in its original quality, and another issue is where to even get that original quality. Besides the fact that nobody really knows if it works or not, or maybe it only works for some people, you might also end up buying some crap. And then there's also
your characteristics.
Exactly. Like you said, it works for you. For someone else, it doesn't. That's it. Honestly, peptides just pass me by, but I still keep an eye on the pharmaceutical market. But peptides, I really have no idea about them. Why is that? No, you have to study and stay up to date on everything. Tirzepatide, semaglutide, of course, I'm aware of those. I haven't used them myself. But some acquaintances have had experience with them, and quite a few, even men. People with significant weight, including women, have lost weight. I haven't heard of any serious side effects from them, like someone dropping dead or anything major happening. The only thing is, when it comes to stopping the medication, you really need to utilize that time to gradually change your eating habits and your behavior, as well as your overall lifestyle, so that after you stop, you either keep going until the end if you can't help it, or at least try to adjust yourself a bit during that period. As much as possible, make these changes to support your progress. Guys, that's an interesting one. Today we had an episode about peptides, about weight loss, and whether these drugs actually work or not. Pavel talked about the different types, mentioned some names. Of course, I hadn't heard of some of them. Have you heard of or had any experience using Ozempic, tirzepatide, semaglutide? What positive or negative experiences have you had? Share them in the comments. Be sure to do that. By the way, all useful links are also in the description. Subscribe to the channel, and Pasha, thank you so much for coming. Leave your comments and let Pasha know you want him back with us, friends. This was Lifesteal. See you next time.